Inside the Arena is presented by Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, Seattle's closest sportsbook.
Welcome to Inside the Arena, your source for everything off the ice, off the court, and outside the field of play. With your hosts, KOMO Sports Director Niko Tamurian and KOMO Senior Reporter Chris Daniels.
Back again, number 54.
Bobby Wagner.
There you go.
You know, we should have had Bobby on for this.
We should. And
maybe 154 we will.
Yeah, and he's still on the field. So
he's still on the field. Good for him.
But we like to talk about stuff off the field. Speaking of which, I followed in your footsteps this past week.
Okay.
You threw out the first pitch at the Tacoma Rainiers game
I'm like 2 for
season.
3 on that. Like, one was bad, but 2 have been spot on.
Well, I did this week. How have your pitches been?
I was just going to say the first one I did in 22 was excellent. 23, I got a little cocky and I threw about 3 feet to the right. Tommy Malone, the pitcher, caught it though.
Yeah.
But last year, drilled it. I even had a little bit of break to it, right? And the catcher just held it. And he's like, that was a great pitch. I'm like, wow, you know.
So behind the scenes, I threw one out, and they have a little league pitcher that goes up ahead of time.
Oh, well, that's pressure though.
And this kid, 13 years old, goes up on the mound. He actually goes on the rubber.
Yeah, well then you had to.
And delivers a strike. And they had the pitch clock. They had the speed up there, 54 miles an hour. I don't know if that was accurate, but the kid just flamethrowing.
Yeah.
And now Chris Daniels. And so I go up there, no warm up.
You can't warm up because you're going to you waste all your good pitches.
I haven't moved my shoulder around at all. And they're like reading off the best hits of the last, couple of decades in Seattle and all that. And I get up and I went a little wide right. I was just happy I didn't skip. I didn't bounce it. I skipped to the right, though. He caught it. I didn't embarrass myself.
Was the radar gone up for yours?
I didn't even want to look. It was probably in the 30s, if I guess.
That's the thing. When I did it, I didn't like the year I messed up. I kind of overthought I'm going to do this. Last year, I'm just like, just throw the darn thing, and then you just
don't want to look like an NFL offensive lineman or defensive lineman who goes way off to the left.
And you had like the extra pressure of the kid who went before you. Like you can't bounce it after he threw a gem of a pitch, right?
That kid psyched me out.
Wow. Well, congrats though. That's great. South Sound guy,
South Sound guy, yeah. So it was fun to go back home again to a stadium that I grew up watching a lot of baseball in back with the Tacoma Tigers days. And thanks to the Tacoma Rainiers for letting me do that and think back to my childhood.
I love Cheney Stadium. It's a great place to be.
They've done a great job with that remodel, now more than a decade old. So, hey, on this week, though, we're focusing on hockey.
Kraken extravaganza.
Yeah.
We've got 2 interviews, and this is Kraken Central for podcast this week because we've got a one-on-one sit-down with new head coach Lane Lambert. What I was really struck about is the direct message. Like, it's one of those things, we've been around the block a few times. Like, we've heard all the same coach speeches. So it takes something to be sort of taken, same word, but by an introduction press conference or comments. But I was like, okay, this guy has his act together, has his stuff together. And Mike McDonald used a different word to describe Sam Darnold. That crossed my mind to use, but no. And so I really was struck by the message. It's direct. It's he's got expectations. The message is clear, and we'll kind of see what happens from there. And so, in addition to that, we were able to sit down with Kraken general manager Jason Botrol. So 2 new guys in town. I mean, Botrol's been here, but new chair for him. And, that was talking about the hiring of Lane, but also in addition to that, taking a look at this really eventful that we've chronicled off season with the cap space, the draft picks, and all those different things that they can use, to make this team better in 25-26. So Kraken fans, we got the whole off season covered for you. This is going to set up everything, not just for the rest of this summer, but of course into next season as well with this new chapter of Kraken hockey.
And it's the first time that the new general manager and new head coach have also sat next to each other in really what is a pivotal time for the franchise, which we will talk about in a few. But what we like to do every week, what's good, what's bad, off the ice, off the court, off the field of play, 4 corners.
Yeah, my positive, and we talked about some of the negatives last week, like the idea of the MLS and players and the pay and all that with FIFA. But the reality, as bad as that is, and you don't like to see it, let's not forget we still got the FIFA Club World Cup, and it's finally here, and that's my positive. This is really, I don't want to call it once in a lifetime, but pretty darn close to an opportunity if you're a soccer fan in Seattle. I mean, obviously American fans aren't quite as into the clubs, although you would know, certainly the interest has grown exponentially, right? And to see some of these real who's who of the club soccer scene in Seattle. And then of course the opportunity for our Sounders. You're kind of catching these premier clubs at the end of their season, like they're trying to rest. They want to get some preseason, whatever it might be. And here's the Sounders primed and ready to go in the middle of theirs. You never know what can happen, but it's here. And that's a cool thing that we've talked about quite a bit in the show, that it's finally here, this world-class event, and kind of a precursor, not really kind of, but a precursor to the actual FIFA World Cup next year.
And I think we're going to be really curious to see what the attendance is like.
Oh, sure.
Ticket sales are like. There's questions in Miami as well as there are in Seattle. So that keeping an eye on that. I just wanted to go positive this week with the Seattle Seawolves.
Hey, well done, guys.
Of Major League Rugby. They make the playoffs at home in Tukwila at Starfire. I can tell you I was there first hand talking with Drew Damberville, our friend of the show, former guest
Drew
here on Inside the Arena, and it was a sellout crowd. The atmosphere, fantastic. And it's interesting what they have done down at Starfire and bringing in a temporary scoreboard to kind of make things better. They have premium seating now on the one end line, and they delivered. I mean, they had to have 4 tries, so to speak, in rugby terms, and also win in order to make the playoffs and get the last playoff spot. They did just that against Miami. The crowd was electric, and I think you look at that crowd, you look at the energy at Starfire, you think about Memorial Stadium coming online in a couple of years and where that franchise could go, in not only in 2027, 28, but with the Rugby World Cup in 2031.
Yeah.
Congratulations to the Seawolves.
Yeah, those 2 tries by Jade were pretty cool. The one was almost I called it in the highlights, the football equivalent of a pick 6. It was really cool to see.
No, it was fun to watch in person. So what don't you like this week?
Well, and you guys know I'm a very positive person. You know that I'm always kind of saying, hey, let's wait and see, that sort of thing. But the Mariners. And we talked about it. I said this so many times on the air, the lack of activity. Now, while I did preach, hey, let's hold on and let's see what happens. And the great Rick Riz, one of my favorite people in the world, has always said, start to put more stock into it at Father's Day, then really wake me up at the All-Star break. Well, Father's Day's here, right? And things aren't going so well. What I said in this offseason is okay, it's one thing to kind of have a perceived lack of activity, but they were really betting on everything going right.
Yeah.
And guess what? For a month it did. And it kind of gave us, all right, maybe longer than a month. But now the injuries have added up. The bats have struggled a bit. Not so much you're getting a lot of hits. You're just not coming through, in the series against the Diamondbacks, 5 for 40 with runners in scoring.
Yeah.
You had 40 batters in scoring position. Couldn't do it. And so, so that's the negative right now, because here's the thing. If they don't turn it around, which there are 90 plus games to turn it around, so let's not say it's over just yet, even if it feels really rough at the moment. If they don't turn it around, then you're talking about, okay, well, what do they do? Because it's kind of like the definition of insanity, same thing over and over again. But so that's the negative right now, is that it just similar to last year, although they didn't have a 10-game lead, it's gone from oh my gosh, what can this team do? Are they going to be in the playoffs? To, oh boy.
Well, I will tell you, down on the farm when I was warming up there, it was for Logan Gilbert, who
that's right,
had a great outing in Tacoma and is looking good. I don't know what the timeline is on his return, but they do need him.
Well, you made sure he had a great outing that night. He's like, that's how this guy threw it. All right.
Yeah, just don't go right and hit everybody like I did. The one thing I'll say negative this week is I'm not a huge fan of this House decision, and we're still settling through how it's going to impact Washington State University, University of Washington. The idea that the universities will be paying a little bit more than $20 million every year. That number is going to go up. Paying athletes directly, paying student athletes directly. It runs the risk of, as we talked about on the show, turning into minor league sports at a college level, and certainly seems like we're getting further and further away from the collegiate experience. And again, still trying to figure out what all this is going to mean. One thing it could mean, though, is the Pac-12 media rights deal is on the verge of being completed.
Right.
Expansion then immediately after that. Teresa Gould, the commissioner of the Pac-12 saying this week as much that they are now looking fully at expansion. So it does sound like all the pieces are finally coming together on that. You want to talk about it? Yes.
The schools are still going to cheat too.
Yeah.
They're going to find ways around that budget. That's my only addition.
Ohio State will still figure out a way to allegedly spend more than that.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about another thing that continues to move forward. It's something we like to spend at least 1 minute on every week, and that is the Supersonic Minute. Right?
Let's do it. We got to do it.
Okay. There's a lot of people who are talking about, Adam Silver said this a week ago. He's essentially said the same thing this week. Did an interview with Dan Patrick talking about putting expansion on the agenda with the NBA Board of Governors meeting. They're definitely going to talk about it this year. He doubled down on that. He's tripled down on it now, but still not guaranteeing there's going to be an expansion process. While all of that goes along, it was interesting that Adam Silver had to address expansion while standing in Oklahoma City.
Sure.
He also defended the TV ratings for the NBA and the idea that two smaller market teams are playing in the NBA Finals, what that was going to mean for the NBA Finals with that team down in Oklahoma, as well as the Indiana Pacers. So we do have some data on that so far. The Pacers and I dare say it out loud, the Thunder, at least here in Seattle, are still beating anything else on TV.
Yeah.
The Tony Awards, they went up against the Tony Awards, the UFL Championship, local newscasts, and still were number one in the time slot here in Seattle, of all places, with that team in Oklahoma and the Pacers playing. On a national level, though, it does look like ratings are down. For
right.
NBA.
And I was struck by here locally in game one, the numbers weren't strong necessarily at the beginning, but then as the Pacers started coming back, it went up. I mean, certainly that's normal, right?
Yeah.
But the numbers went up exponentially, almost doubled, not quite but it was, it was just really cool to see that his word spread that, hey, Indiana's got something going here. Hey, they made this happen. And, let's see how it shakes out. But you know what? Hopefully pretty soon we don't have to taste, we'll still not like OKC, but it won't carry the same sting, at least in a couple years, hopefully.
Well, should we talk about the team that is here?
Yeah, let's talk about the Kraken. And certainly you could say they've paved the way for all this to come. The Kraken, you have to give them credit. We talked about it on the show, where some teams would just kind of hope that things change. Like, well, let's give it another year. Let's give it another year. And much to the chagrin of the fan base, the Kraken recognized, hey, this isn't good enough and made changes. And maybe it was too swift. Maybe it's too quick. But here are the changes. Lane Lambert is here. He is the new leader of this team. And let's get to know him a little bit. His philosophies, how he got into hockey, his family, because we know the coaching world is such a whirlwind. What's that like? And his message to you Kraken fans right after this.
This August, luxury awaits at Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel. Book now for an unforgettable summer experience. Visit snocasino.com. Seattle's closest is now Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel.
Obviously this has been in the works, but now you're here in Seattle. Yeah. You're at the facilities. You mentioned the staff meeting. Just what's it like to be here and now taking over this role as head coach?
It's exciting. As I said, it's an honor to be named the head coach. There's only 32 of these jobs, so totally honored and privileged to be able to do that and to come here and come into this organization. I mentioned it earlier that within the first 5 minutes I knew this was going to be a fit for me, and simply because of we have the facilities, we have the ownership, and you talked about the staff meeting this morning. Everybody's involved in it. Everybody has a feel for it, and it's exciting to be here.
Absolutely. And it's obviously the results weren't what the franchise wanted the last couple of years, but yet there's still this great optimism surrounding this franchise and what it can do. How much did that draw you in as the job came open, interview process, all that sort of thing?
Yeah, coming here as a visiting coach and seeing the fans and being in the building and getting the sort of the feel for their passion. I knew that this was kind of the situation I was coming into, and you're always drawn in by passionate fans. They give you life, they give you energy, and I think that not only that, but Seattle as a sports town overall is fantastic.
One of those things to kind of piggyback off that question is, we know it's loud in there, but from the opposing bench, what is that really like to go against all that?
Well, it's hey, it's difficult, right? And that's the joy of playing home games and having home fans that are loud and passionate. It makes it more difficult on the visiting team.
For you as a coach, one of the things that struck me, again, just meeting in the last few minutes here in the press conference, everything seems clear, direct, and there's a confidence about it. How important is it to send that message to the players, like, hey, this is what we expect, and if we do it, good things will happen?
Yeah, I mean I think it's critical, but that's just me. That's just it's not. I've seen it. It's worked, and I think that players relish that. Like, as a player, and I was a player for a long time, all you want is to know what's going on, and you want to have communication. And sometimes, the message isn't always what you want to hear, but at least you know where you stand.
Absolutely. When we talk about your hockey background as a player and everything like that, certainly, what were some of your biggest inspirations to get into the game? What were some of your biggest foundations that started this life in hockey?
Oh, well, it was my dad, and I have two brothers, and we were living in a small town in Saskatchewan, and they built the dads around the street built an outdoor rink, and we used to put our skates on when we came home from school, and I was probably 5 or 6 at that time, came home from school, and we would play hockey. We would literally skate down the street because the streets were a little bit icy in Saskatchewan in the winter, skate down the streets, eat, and go back out, and we had lights up and everything because one of the dads was the electrician in town, and so it was amazing. That's really where it all started.
I was gonna say, that can really forge everything when you've got that kind of support and setup, right?
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable. And then it just led into minor hockey for all three of us brothers, and we just have never stopped.
It's never stopped. Could you imagine when you guys were that age that it'd lead to everything that it has, including this new step today?
Yeah, no, I don't think you're thinking about it back then, but now when you think about it and you go back, you're just you're so grateful and appreciative. I mean, hockey has been my life. It's been a great life, and it's given me everything that I have, and I am truly grateful for it.
What does it know? Obviously this franchise, we talk about the support it has. Given that life you've had in hockey, what does it know that, it's a relatively new franchise fan base, but they've already embraced you here, and they're so excited to see you out there. I mean, that's a special thing, and I think is, special to this sport especially.
Yeah, I'm actually, I'm honored by that. The sort of the, I guess, the buzz, about it, and it means a lot. I appreciate it.
Looking at we talked about the optimism a minute ago. Certainly, it feels like a new chapter for this franchise in so many ways, but there's a real opportunity here, whatever might come this off season, whether that's the draft, free agency, trades, or whatever, but also with the people here in place. That opportunity, I hate to use the word exciting because it's about business and getting down to work, but how exciting is that kind of opportunity to see what happens next and be able to kind of usher that in?
Yeah, every team in the league is trying to get better over the summer. Every team always, is looking to make improvements. We're no different than anybody else, and where that takes us is always exciting. It's always exciting to see where the future is going to go.
And as far as where that future is going to go, and I asked you about this during the press conference, where we do it. There's some young players here that are really special. There's some guys coming up in the system, but also there's those established veterans as well. And it's a lot of different phases, so to speak, that are being melded in. That's a unique situation, or how special is that opportunity?
Yeah, it's somewhat unique for sure. There's other teams and other organizations that are in that position a little bit, but from our standpoint, the key is, and our captain's a great person. Our veteran players are great people. The youth, the talent that's coming in. Guys that Jason, alluded to that were NHL players, the Beniers and the Wrights and these guys, and then other guys that are going to work their way up from the minors, and we're going to grow this organization from within, for the most part. But having those veteran guys to show those young guys the way is certainly a key.
And what will be, I'm glad you said that word key, because that was the next one out of my mouth. What will be the key? And listen, nobody has a crystal ball in June, but what will be the key to maybe get this team to where you want it to get, to the next step here with this franchise?
One day at a time. Just take it one day at a time. Yeah, you can't, don't look past the next day. Don't look past improving when you come to the rink the next day. Don't look a month in advance. Don't look 2 months in advance. Enjoy the process, understand it's a journey, and go from there. The results will take care of themselves if you do the right things.
I love that. One thing I also loved from the press conference, you said when they offered you the job, you and your wife high-fived.
Yeah.
And I think that, fans, they understand it, but they don't really understand it, that the coaching world and moving around families and things like that for your family.
Yeah.
How special is it to get, like you said, one of 32, but also this is a team thing, meaning your family as well.
It really is, yeah. No, and they sacrifice a lot, and everyone does in every facet of life, every business. I'm just speaking personally from my standpoint. You miss high school graduation because you're in the playoffs. You can't make it back to high school graduation or something like that, right? So they've sacrificed a lot for us to be able to be in this position, and I say us because we're a family, we're a team.
Absolutely. Last thing I'll ask you is just we're talking about all the exciting things to come. What's it going to be like when training camp's there in September and you can really start getting to work with these guys ahead of the new season?
Yeah, I know it's going to be fun. Again, we've got a lot of preparation to do before that. And I'm just looking forward to the first day on the ice, getting everybody out there and starting the journey together.
Is there a message for Kraken fans watching this?
Yeah, I'm excited. You should be excited. Our players are excited, and I will tell you this, that we will be in every game, and you will not leave the building cheated by our hockey team.
Sounds good to me. Lane Lambert,
yeah.
Welcome to Seattle.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. All right, so there's Lane Lambert, and it's one of those things where you talk to him, he's just likable. He doesn't he's not like John Tortorella, he's not like Pete Carroll necessarily, but I like there's a directness. There's like, hey, this is what we're gonna do. I know it works, and that leads me to believe that he had the one successful year with the Islanders. The plug was pulled about halfway through the second season. I think there's a lot more there. Of course, we'll all find out soon. And Chris, as you know, there's going to be a lot of new players that he's probably working with, in addition to the vets and young guys already in the Kraken system. So we talk about $20 million in cap space. We talk about 10 first and second round picks over the next 3 years. They will not use all of those. They will trade some assuredly this summer. To that end, the guy who's going to be making those calls for the first time here in Seattle anyway, Jason Botrol. Here's our one-on-one conversation with Jason.
Luxury awaits at Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel. Book now for an unforgettable summer experience. Opening this August, wake up to breathtaking Cascade views, enjoy world-class dining, and play your favorite games. Visit snocasino.com. Seattle's closest is now Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel.
Let's just talk about the news today and what this process was like. Obviously, new role for you here. It's a role that you've been doing in a lot of ways, but now going through the head coach hiring process, what this was all like, and to kind of have it, so to speak, culminate with introducing Lane today.
Yeah, no, it was obviously very exciting day for our organization. We're ecstatic to have Lane on board as our leader in the locker room down there, and just as we went through the process, we really liked Lane's resume of working with younger players, whether it's at the American Hockey League level, working with an expansion team in Nashville for a while there, obviously having the success winning the Stanley Cup in Washington, the head coaching experience with the Islanders, then getting right back in it, being a part of a very successful team in Toronto. So we felt that he brought a lot of different characteristics that we were looking for as a head coach. We felt he had the presence to work with our veteran players, but also be dedicated to working with our younger players to help them grow from that standpoint. So ecstatic to have him on board. You go through a coaching search. You just like, I think when you watch a National Hockey League game, there's immense talent out on the ice. I think there's a lot of talented coaches out there, but very excited to have Lane a part of our group here.
One of the things that this was my first interaction with, it wasn't really interaction, just watching him at a press conference, but I was struck by the confidence. And obviously so many in the sport are confident, but he's like, this is the formula, we're going to do it, it's going to work. how much can that be infectious with the team when he gets rolling with them?
Well, I think you're always looking, like we talked about, we say leadership, being the leader down there in the locker room. I think he will certainly provide our players with a clear direction on what he wants to be accomplished on the ice and what role he wants players to have. Both Ron and I really enjoyed through the discussions with him was just his openness on, hey, offensive creativity, on development of younger players. I think Lane's background is a defensive coach. He has a great track record from that standpoint. But even as Lane will talk to you about, the reason why he believes in the defensive element of the game is to get the puck, but then to have some fun in the offensive zone and create more opportunities. And he talked a little bit about the transition today. So, no, we really enjoyed getting to know him from that perspective, and I think he'll bring some good structure and clarity to our group.
One of those, and this is not a disrespect to anybody in that role in the past, but can that be the thing that maybe takes us forward, is that direction, that clear message? Because we know the talent's there, right? And I'm so sorry about the loud noise there, but can that be the thing that takes this team to the next level, is that clear direction and message?
Well, I think you just, like, whether you're a veteran player or a young player just learning the league, yes, you want that clear direction, you want that clear understanding of what your role is and what the other players on the ice are going to be doing from a structural standpoint. And I think, as you saw what we saw in the interview process, what you saw in the press conference today, is Lane is going to have those direct conversations, and sometimes they're very positive conversations, sometimes they're, hey, this is the things that we need to improve on and stuff. And at the end of the day, you're not going to play your top and your best hockey for 82 games. What I liked in our conversations with Lane was, hey, when you're coming off a loss, what are the things that has to be adjusted the next day to get this group back on track, whether it's an individual standpoint or a team standpoint. And I think that ability to sort of reconvene and refocus is going to be something key for our organization and our team moving forward.
You know, and from the outside, we look at the Islanders stop, got them to the playoffs, and it seemed like a very abbreviated thing there from the standpoint that they didn't really give him a lot of time. And again, this is the outside perspective, I wasn't there. But can that, when you're looking at Lane, and obviously all the characteristics stand up, be like, boy, he was successful and really wasn't given a chance to build on that success. Is that something from the outside you see as well? Or?
No, I think you always feel that you are prepared to be a head coach. But then when you get into that chair, there's always different things that happen. And I think Lane's learned from that experience, and it just is going to be better prepared for his opportunity here now in Seattle. But, you know, you talk about a confidence that he showed in the press conference, he has it, right? And I think it's just based off of being a head coach in the American Hockey League, being a head coach in the WHL, now in the National Hockey League. He's comfortable in that role, and you look at his track record, he's been a part of pretty much any situation in the National Hockey League. So I think that those experiences exude confidence for him.
Yeah, the winning, that was my next question. It seems like wherever he's been, they're going deep in the playoffs, or they're winning the thing in the case of the Caps. I mean, that's just, again, what does that mean to you that he's been in that situation and knows the road, should he be able to get this team back there?
No, and you look in the league, you're looking in the NHL playoffs this year, like the difference between winning and losing is so small, right? And it's difficult. And I think we talk so much about winning, and a lot of people say that I know what a winning culture is and that. But until you actually go through the ups and downs of a season, go through the ups and downs of 4 rounds of the playoffs, and find a way to overcome that and have success, it's something different. And for Lane to be a part of that group in Washington after previous sort of disappointments of not achieving it and then finding ways to get over, I think gives him a lot of confidence in what needs to accomplish from a structure standpoint, but also too from a mental standpoint in dealing with players and realizing, hey, how do you recover after a tough loss? How do you not get too high after a big win? And those experiences, I think, will certainly help him out.
Shifting gears a little bit here, is it exciting this offseason you have coming up here with obviously the draft, there's picks, you don't have to give away any state secrets here, but how exciting is this offseason with all the assets you have to make whatever you want to try and do make happen?
No, we're obviously extremely excited to get Lane in place here now and to build off that. You know, we've talked about trying to add to our team, whether it's through trade, through free agency. You know, last week where we were all in Buffalo going through things, the main focus is certainly the draft and get to know the kids in the draft and seeing their testing. But it's also a great opportunity to interact with other GMs and start to discuss things from a trade perspective. So, no, we're very excited about what we could possibly add to this team, and we're also extremely excited about just internal growth with this team. Whether it's, you know, a Matty Beniers, a Kako, a Shane Wright, you know, where we've been pushing our development staff a lot to try to get players such as Yanni Newman or Berkeley Catton ready for National Hockey League play at the start of the season. So, we're excited to get the season going. We understand that there's a lot of work to be done before September, but we're certainly looking forward to things.
One thing I'm always struck by is like these young guys will step in and they have almost an immediate impact. Now, certainly somebody like Maddie, to an extent, number 2 pick. We're talking about a Ty Cartier undrafted. Yanni Newman comes in right away and scores. What does that say about this organization's development system, that these guys are ready for that moment when they get called out?
No, we're extremely proud of what is being created in Coachella Valley, and I think they're preparing players to play in the National Hockey League. And then it takes it even a step further. I believe Robert Cron and his amateur staff are bringing players into our system that they understand it's a huge accomplishment to be drafted, but it's not an end point. It's just a starting point on the work that needs to be done. And Berkeley Catton's a classic example. We're extremely proud of what he did from a production standpoint this year in Spokane, but we're even more proud of what he was doing off the ice, working with our staff and Jeff Tambolini, and just what he has to do on the off-ice workout, getting a stronger lower body that hopefully will allow him to play in the National Hockey League next year as a 19-year-old.
For you personally, I know you're so focused on what you got to do every day, and I don't want to imagine what your to-do list is in that GM's chair, but it almost feels like this is a next chapter for this Kraken team, not just the surface stuff with the new head coach and whatever you guys were able to do, but it just feels like it's a new chapter in a lot of ways. What does it mean to, in your role, help usher in that new chapter and try to get this team to the best results in that next step?
Well, without a doubt, I think you look at it, we're excited about what we are contributing and what we're building in Coachella Valley. We're excited about player development. We're excited about what we've drafted over the last few years. We understand the results need to be better at one point here to help this organization to take the next step. But I think you heard from Lane today, it's about the process and making sure that there's a focus on development. And I think sometimes development, everyone just thinks it's young kids, that's it. We still believe, hey, Jordan Eberle's still developing, even as our captain. We believe Chandler Stevenson has another level to go now that he's been in Seattle for a year, understands what is expected of him here, feeling more comfortable. Brandon Montour had a great year last year on the back end, but we still feel like there's another level he can bring to himself. So when we talk about development, we're looking across our whole NHL team, and that's something that just gets us excited about where this possibly can go. And we feel we have the pieces in place. We understand that we have to make some adjustments, but we're excited about what's being built in this organization, and now it's time to take the next step at the NHL level.
Yeah, and kind of finishing up here to that end, you mentioned, you want the results to be better, but you have somebody like Lane coming in I want to be a part of this. You have this whole community. You wouldn't know that there was 2 years without the playoffs because everybody's still wearing the Kraken gear everywhere. What does that say about Seattle's a hockey town and the culture within the Kraken organization?
Well, I think it's, as Lane said, this is a great sports town at the end of the day. They're passionate. We love being a part of Seahawks games or Mariner games or Sounder games. And hey, we've been a part of it. From day one, Climate Pledge Arena has brought an energy and passion level, and we all remember the playoff run. We all remember Jordan Eberle's overtime goal. We want more of that from that standpoint. But I also think it's a great job from our business side. They've grown the game of hockey, whether it's youth games, involvement in charities throughout the region. I think they've done a great job, and we're excited about now taking the next step from a hockey standpoint.
Jason, appreciate your time. Thank you.
My
so
pleasure.
much.
So there you have it. New chapter of Kraken hockey. Everything looks good on press conference, announcement, introduction day. Let's see how it goes, but there's reason to be optimistic.
Well, and it's a big year, as we've talked about multiple times on this show, the 5th year of the franchise, the fact that people have season ticket packages that are on their 5th year option. They've already lowered ticket prices. We've talked about TV and the ratings over the air versus on Amazon Prime streaming. They need somebody who can score, who is a frontline, first-line scorer. We're going to hear about names like Mitch Marner. I don't know if he's going to leave Toronto for Seattle. Already seen Jason Robertson from Dallas, a left winger who can score potentially on the trade block. You just talked about picks perhaps going away to pick up somebody. They need somebody who can score and score a lot of points and be in that 80 to 100 point per season. I think really moving the puck forward, to use the metaphor, for the Kraken.
Yeah, I think they get that message. And I think that they have now the assets, the ammunition, so to speak, to make that. So I'm going to tell you what, and I think you would agree with this, that outside of the inaugural year, the expansion draft, picking up Matty Beniers, and then regular draft, this is the most impactful offseason for this team, easily, aside from that first one, of course.
Especially if we talk about Sonics and expansion coming down the pike. which we'll continue to do every week.
We will. We love that. And I think David Lee does too.
You've been listening to Inside the Arena with Niko and Chris. Please subscribe on your favorite platform. Until next time.
Inside the Arena was presented by Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, Seattle's closest sports book.